David and Jennifer, identical siblings from California, live vastly different lives. Jennifer is a popular girl who can go on dates with any boy she likes. Meanwhile, David is shy and glances at his crush from a distance, only contemplating chatting to her. He enjoys watching a black and white sitcom from the 1950s called Pleasantville at home and can repeat every line of dialogue from memory. When he overhears his divorced mother arguing with his father about custody, David simply turns up the TV volume instead of offering assistance. After their mother leaves, Jennifer wants to go to a concert with her upcoming date, but David wants to watch the Pleasantville Marathon. The twins struggle over the remote control, which lands on the floor and breaks. Jennifer opens the doorbell, only to find a repairman who claims to have come for the broken TV. Jennifer allows him in, wondering how he knew since no one phoned him and admiring his vintage van. As lightning strikes outside, the repairman pulls out a strange-looking remote to offer David, stating it has a little more oomph. On his way out, the repairman mentions Jennifer's date but does not explain how he knew it. David then turns on the television using the weird remote. He and Jennifer start fighting over it again, just like the two teens on Pleasantville fought over a book. Suddenly, the remote illuminates and the twins are transported to the television. They now live in a black and white world, and their attire and hair have changed to match the characters. At that point, the series' father, George, informs children that it is time to go to school. The twins appear to have fully assumed the place of the series' siblings, with the other characters even referring to them by their fake names. The TV repairman enters and tells Jennifer and David that they are a miracle, which is possible because to David's extensive knowledge of the series. He also demonstrates that in their universe, Jennifer's date arrives at the house but leaves when no one responds, insulting her. The twins demand to be returned, but the repairman is angered because they do not value his gift and flees. After they hide the remote, Betty, the twins' mother, pushes them to eat a large breakfast filled with greasy items. The twins then make their way to school, and David recognizes every character from the series. Jennifer is starting to stress out, but David urges that they play along until the repairman arrives. Suddenly, a fire truck appears, and a party of 5 firefighters emerge, but they're merely there to help a cat out of the tree. As Jennifer complains about the situation, a high schooler called Skip greets her. Jennifer immediately likes him and looks forward to coming to school. Later in geography class, the teacher instructs the students on the few streets in town. Jennifer's question about what is beyond Pleasantville perplexes everyone else. The teacher just responds that the end of Main Street is merely the beginning again. Meanwhile, David practices with the basketball squad. He used to be awful in sports, but today he can make every throw without error. Everyone else on the team also scores every time, showing that this facility operates on TV logic. Then Skip approaches David and asks if he should ask Jennifer out. David identifies this as the start of an episode and urges Skip to wait. Skip becomes agitated and misses his next shot, leaving everyone stunned. Knowing that making out-of-character judgments could damage this reality, David rushes to tell Jennifer to go out with Skip. In answer, Jennifer describes how strange her day has been. All of the books are empty, and when she attempts to put a tissue on fire, it does not ignite. This explains why the firefighters are solely rescuing cats here. Jennifer's giggling pals arrive to inform her that Skip intends to ask her out and give her his pen, and Jennifer reluctantly agrees to play along. Later at home, Jennifer prepares for her date with Skip and compliments on her conservative attire. David advises her not to worry because no one gets naughty in this world, which disappoints her. David then runs to his job at the soda shop, where he is greeted by his boss, Bill. Because David was late, Bill claims he simply kept scrubbing the counter without knowing what to do next. David interrupts him and explains that Bill can make fries even if David hasn't set up the napkins yet. In the evening, the soda shop becomes crowded with teens, including Skip and Jennifer on their date. Skip prefers to take things slowly and is hesitant to hold hands, which bores Jennifer so much that she takes a restroom break. To her surprise, there are no toilets. Her pals soon emerge and express their excitement about Jennifer maybe ending up in Lover's Lane with Skip. Jennifer returns to the table and requests that Skip take her there now that she is aware of the location. The couple leaves in Skip's car, and David quickly suspects his sister's bad plans, so he attempts to stop them but is unsuccessful. Jennifer flirts with a frightened Skip at Lover's Lane and persuades him to do the dirty. Skip is perplexed because his body has never behaved like that before, so Jennifer has to explain that it is normal and eventually gives him his first time. Meanwhile, Bill arrives at David's house to inform him that he closed the business all by himself, something he had never done before. Bill begins to express his pride in being spontaneous for a change, but he stops when Betty walks by and says hello. They're clearly attracted to each other. Later, Skip drops Jennifer off at her place, and David is concerned about how his appearance has altered. As he goes, Skip notices that a rose in the garden is truly red. The next day, David searches for the repairman on television but finds nothing but the Weather Channel, which usually shows nice weather. Later, during basketball practice, David notices Skip telling his teammates what he did with Jennifer. Then, when they toss the ball, everybody misses. Worried, David approaches Jennifer and tells her that she is tampering with the universe, but Jennifer reminds out that the locals were not always happy. At that moment, a girl walks by, blowing pink bubble gum, indicating that Jennifer's idea is catching on. Soon, many of couples gather to Lover's Lane to get nasty. This gradually causes things in town to change. The basketball team gets worse at basketball, the furniture business starts offering double beds, and more people notice colors here and there. David continues to search the television for the repairman to no avail. One night in the soda shop, David notices that the teens are far more liberated than before, openly kissing and listening to rock and roll. He also discovers Bill cowering behind the counter because he has ran out of cheeseburgers and is experiencing an existential crisis over his employment. David observes that people cannot always enjoy what they do, which Bill finds quite sad. He also admits that Christmas is his favorite time of year because it allows him to paint a different mural. Then he pulls out a photo book and shows David all of the murals he has painted, which are quite good. Meanwhile, at the barbershop, George and his friends debate how the basketball team has been losing. But when Mayor Bob arrives, he tells them that is impossible because the basketball team never loses. Betty and her friends spend their time at home playing cards. One of the mothers complains about her daughter's pink tongue and how it has spread to her lips. Another woman says she noticed a green automobile in front of the ice cream establishment. While Betty listens, she picks up her cards and is surprised to realize that they are colored. Later in the evening, Betty inquires about what happens at Lover's Lane, prompting Jennifer to explain her about the birds and bees. Betty can't believe what she's hearing and swears George would never do something like that, so Jennifer shows her how to do it with only her hand. While George is sleeping, Betty draws a bath and follows Jennifer's directions. She enjoys the sensation, and when she reaches her climax, the bathroom turns full color and the tree outside catches fire. Seeing this, David rushes to the fire station, crying fire, but no one responds. Then he says cat. The firemen arrive to David's house, but they don't know what to do about the fire, so David pulls the hose off the truck and extinguishes the flames while the neighbors gather to watch. The next day, David is awarded a medal for his bravery. Margaret surprises David after the wedding by giving him some handmade cookies, despite the fact that she likes someone else in the series. On his walk to the soda shop, David notices a couple kissing, and they are both completely colorful now. Inside, he discovers more colorful teenagers listening to jazz, but they all freeze when they see David. They want to know how David knew how to put out the fire, so he tells them that's what firefighters did where he used to live. The group then asks where he resided and is shocked when he reveals he lives outside of Pleasantville. David begins telling them stories about the outside world, and a teen recalls a reference of a river in Huckleberry Finn, which he brings out. Jennifer reveals that the book is no longer empty, as the pages filled in while she was explaining the novel's plot to the others. However, she never finished it, thus it ended in the middle. The teenagers want David to tell them how the novel finishes, and when he does, the remaining pages fill in. Excited, the teens bring out additional books, which David fills. Soon, lengthy lineups of teens form at the library, eager to check out more books. The men at the barbershop begin to worry about the changes in their customs. Bob is also dissatisfied with the direction things are taking, so he pays George a visit to complain about things like double beds and people quitting their jobs. Then Bob invites him to join the Pleasantville Chamber of Commerce, and George gladly accepts. To celebrate, George summons Betty to prepare some goodies, but she does not show up. David agrees to look for her, and he finds her crying by the kitchen sink because she has turned colorful. She is frightened of being judged by her husband, so David takes her makeup and makes her sing gray again. Now she can go out because George never stopped calling her name instead of rising up. The next day, at the soda shop, David hands Bill a book about renowned paintings. The sight of such beauty greatly upsets Bill, and he declares that he will never be able to paint like that since he cannot sense colors. Moments later, David asks Margaret out, and she accepts. David returns home, full of excitement, and is surprised to see the repairman on television. The repairman considers returning the twins because they are changing too much, but David simply switches off the TV. Then David checks on Jennifer and is astonished to see her reading D.H. Lawrence. She doesn't understand why she hasn't gained color, so David thinks that it could be more than just doing the wrong thing that causes it. Later, David and Margaret travel to Lover's Lane for their date. Almost everything in this region is colorful, and most couples are reading to each other when choosing their hues. David tells stories from outside Pleasantville, and Margaret feeds him fruit she has chosen, even going to a tree to get a fresh apple. Meanwhile, Betty is going across town and observes a large picture in the soda shop's display. She goes inside and discovers Bill painting in different styles. He asks her to look at his paintings and shows her the famous artwork from the book. When Betty notices the woman in the painting crying, she bursts into tears and mistakenly wipes off some of her makeup. She attempts to flee, but Bill stops her because he wants to see her wonderful color and removes more makeup off. Jennifer is still reading at home when she notices she is becoming cold, so she puts on her sweater. She also sees she is having difficulty with the words and puts on her spectacles. It seemed as if she was gradually morphing into a local. Skip throws pebbles into Jennifer's window, reminding her of their naughty date, but she rejects him because she is busy studying. Minutes later, thunder strikes for the first time in this town. George arrives home and shouts for Betty, but she isn't there and hasn't prepared dinner for him. In the soda shop, Bill is painting Betty. When she wakes up to witness the rainstorm, she notices Bill's work and is shocked by the outcome. At Lover's Lane, it begins to rain heavily, and everyone flees to a gazebo for safety. David informs them that rain isn't dangerous and walks away, laughing at the situation. At the same time, George walks out into the rain, furious that his routine has been disrupted. Unsure what else to do, he walks to the bowling alley, where Bob and the other guys are shocked to hear his story. One of the men reveals a burn from an iron on the back of his shirt, indicating that his wife was also distracted. All of the men disliked losing control of their women and decided to band together to fight the changes in town. Bill and Betty kiss in the soda shop. The next morning, the first rainbow appears over Pleasantville. Bill and Betty wake up to find that they, like the soda shop, are completely colorful. Jennifer has gained color at home as well. Margaret wakes up at Lover's Lane and is also colorful, while David is still in black and white. Soon, a town meeting is scheduled to address the adjustments. George tries to get Betty to attend the meeting, but she refuses. And disagreement begins as George claims that the color is transient and that a wife should always have dinner ready for her spouse, but Betty is finished. She informs him that she has prepared some meals for him in advance and demonstrates how to boil them before leaving. Meanwhile, David gives Margaret her first umbrella, which used to be a theater prop. At that point, a thug drives by and reminds them about the meeting, mocking Margaret for being colorful. At the meeting, Mayor Bob addressed people's concerns about colors, stating that they must select what is nice and what isn't, and proposes that those categories remain distinct. At the soda shop, Bill scratches his mural off the glass before noticing Betty approaching him with her bag. The next day, numerous stores start putting up signs saying no coloreds. A crowd gathers around the soda shop, shocked at the mural on the window, which depicts Betty naked. After checking out the painting, David passes past the television store and notices the repairman on the screen. He tries to send David back to his planet, but he refuses and simply goes. When he notices a gang of high school lads tormenting Betty, he rushes to defend her by hitting one of them. The lads flee, terrified because they have never witnessed violence before, while David realizes he has finally gotten color. Betty gives him a hug to express her congratulations. Back at the mural, the audience yells violently as a man throws a rock through the glass, smashing it. The crowd celebrates, and the desire for violence grows, so more people begin attacking the shop. At first, it's only the facade, but they quickly move inside and begin trashing all of the furniture, supplies, and other paintings. That night, the Grays begin burning books in protest. Skip intends to burn Jennifer's book, but she steals it and flees away. She runs into David and the girls, and they head to the soda shop, where they find Bill cleaning up. The group instantly offers to assist him. Bob soon conducts another meeting at Community Hall, informing the residents that they must establish a code of behavior for the community. Later, David reads the new regulations to the colorful crowd at the soda shop. The guidelines prohibit vandalism and encourage decent behavior, but also proclaim the closure of Lover's Lane and the public library. Rock and jazz music, umbrellas, large beds, and brightly colored paint are all disallowed. Everyone is outraged and terrified to turn on the jukebox, but David does so anyway, reminding everyone to fight for their rights. That night, all the colorful folks sleep in the soda shop. David assures Bill he'll paint again, and they have an idea. The next day, the newspaper guy is shocked to discover David and Bill sleeping beneath a colorful painting depicting numerous town prohibitions, such as couples kissing and literature burning. A mob quickly arises to voice their displeasure, prompting David and Bill to be detained. Later, George visits David in jail while eating cocktail olives straight from the jar. He explains that Betty left 3 days ago and that he has no idea what day it is because his routine was disrupted. George wonders what went wrong, and David just answers that people change. David and Bill are accused with the intentional use of prohibited paint colors during their trial. David requests a lawyer, but Bob refuses to use one in order to keep things pleasant. Furious, David begins a speech about the vital things in life, emphasizing that there is no distinction between the black and white and colorful people. David asks George if he misses anything more besides cleaning and cooking, prompting him to gaze at his wife. George, crying, looks at Betty and acknowledges she is the most beautiful woman he has ever seen, prompting him to acquire color. As David continues to discuss the necessity of expressing one's emotions, others in the courthouse become more colorful. Bob becomes enraged, but David simply taunts him until he snaps and gains color. Everyone gasps, and Betty hands David a mirror so that Bob may confront the truth. As a terrified Bob flees, someone calls everyone in the courtroom to come out. The mob rushes to the street, delighted to discover that the entire town has been transformed into a sea of vibrant colors. After Margaret kisses David, he travels to the television store and notices that they are finally broadcasting images of the outer world in color. Later, Jennifer tells David that she plans to stay in this planet for a while, wanting to attend college here. David vows to come back and check on her shortly, and they hug. After Jennifer leaves on a bus, David returns home, where Margaret gives him a meal and tells him not to forget about her. Betty gives him a cardigan and says she is proud of him. Then the women see David use the remote to return to his reality. Back in his living room, the Pleasantville Marathon is about to begin, but David turns off the television and goes to check on his mother, who is crying in the kitchen. She expresses her concerns, and David responds with advice that surprises her with his newfound intelligence. Life in Pleasantville has become more vibrant and dynamic. Betty and George sit on a bench talking about their future, and Bill soon joins them.